Hello there, welcome back to Planet Zoo and welcome back to Opal Zoo, our themed zoo. So we are working in our Africa area today. In the last episode we built this piece in the middle here, this habitat with the fennec foxes and the African penguins in, which I think turned out pretty nice. And in this episode we are going to be filling in all of this area around here and this small area over here. So I will warn you in advance, this is going to be quite a long video because there's a big habitat to cover, as well as a backstage area here and a small cafe and restaurant over here, as well as all the detailing as well. So there's quite a lot to get through, so I'm not going to dawdle, I'm going to crack on with it. So this is the first thing that I did at this stage. I wanted an archway, as I've done with the entrance to all of the other ones, like this one here, the South America archway. So a nice themed entrance to each zone. And this is what I came up with. I'm really happy with this actually. I think it looks rather cool. Just randomly putting all these different pieces together, turning these drums upside down, and then putting a load of these sticks in the middle with a light in there. And then some more of the sticks at the top with the elephant on top. Duplicated that over here. And then just got some of these nice wooden pieces joining the two together with some of these beads, one of the big masks, and Africa in simple lettering. So it was pretty straightforward, but actually I think it turned out really nicely. And it fits nicely across the pathway here. So yeah, I love it. I think yeah, I didn't have to make any changes, let's just say that. Basically that's how it was when I first created it, and that's how it stayed. So I was obviously pretty happy with how it turned out. So that was my first bit of detailing, and I did that purely because I just had an idea basically of what I wanted it to look like. So rather than cracking on with the next habitat, I decided to crack on with the archway, and that archway will also be used over here eventually, but I don't put that in until I've finished all the detailing over this bit of the park. So next was going to be this. As you can see, it's a huge area, and I had quite a grand plan for it, which you'll see in a minute, which involved quite a lot of terraforming and a lot of playing around with traversable areas, because I'm putting some big animals like the elephants and the giraffe in here. And what I ended up doing didn't actually leave them a lot of space. You'll see what I mean in a minute. So without further delay, let's crack on and I'll show you what I did next. You can see roughly what I had in mind for this area. I wanted the edge to be a path. I decided I wanted a path that goes right around the back of the habitat, and indeed in the middle here as well. So that obviously creates a bit of an issue, that I needed a bit of landscaping to connect the two areas together, but I thought that would work really nicely. It would create a nice tunnel and a bridge for the animals to go over. But obviously you can see on this side immediately this doesn't become a huge area, and that's mainly because of what I do to create the edge, because I didn't want this to just be a normal fence. What I wanted was there to essentially be no barrier between the pathway and the animals. Certainly not a physical barrier that you can see anyway. I wanted it to be a downwards barrier rather than upwards barrier. So you'll see what I mean by that in a minute. But what it does mean, particularly in a narrow area like this, is that there's not a lot of traversable area here for the animals. And indeed, even coming down here, you end up with about a third of this space in the middle here that the animals can actually walk on. But they can come right up and over here, and they can use most of this as well. Pathway comes along around the side here, and again I came up with the idea that I wanted a raised viewing platform over here. So that's what I've put in, with a funky staircase on each side, and then the path continues around the back here, joining in here under the tunnel, and obviously right the way around here back to the entrance to the area over here. So that was the basic structure. So you can see why it became quite a big project, because there's a lot going on here. I was obviously going to have to do a lot of terraforming with this and a lot of decorating to make it look good. I was also going to have to create an awful lot of barrier. I was also going to have to do something with this raised platform. So yeah, quite a lot to do. So I don't know what I did next, but we'll find out. We'll load up my next stage and find out what I got up to next. Right, so as you can see, I've done some more landscaping at this point. So this was my idea for a barrier. Like I said, I didn't want necessarily a fence, although in the end there is a small fence. As you can see here, I'm just starting to work on a bit of a log fence. But essentially what I wanted was a water trench coming all the way around the habitat until obviously just at the back here where I could block it off with rocks, and then the same on this side, and now you can really see why this is very limited terrain here. The animals do manage to get down here, and I do put, I think, a large feeding station here to encourage them, but obviously even this bit here is quite a small bit of land really. So my theory was to fill these with water, obviously decorate them, make them look nice, and then on the outside here I would still need a barrier, because otherwise people in reality people could just walk off and go swimming and go over there and get eaten by things, which I didn't want. So I do end up putting a barrier on this side, and you can see here I just wanted something basic with logs. So I do actually, I think I use this, and then I think I actually shrink it into the ground a little bit more as well. So here's the entrance. So our habitat barrier is in. So this is the doorway. Obviously it's no good at the moment, but this actually created another problem, because I needed to make sure that there was enough of a pathway across here, so when the animals are brought in from the outside they could actually go on here and walk off, because I think when I initially built this bit, the animals got put down just inside the door here and then they couldn't cross. So this has to be quite a wide area with no rocks or anything, because I edge this this trench, I do edge with rocks to make it look better. And when I did that around this entranceway here, the rocks seemed to block off where the animals could walk, which was a bit of a pain, but I have to work my way around these problems. The other thing that I wanted specifically to do over here with this viewing platform was to have the edge of the barrier, so the edge of the habitat, actually go right underneath here. I kind of did that to create a problem for myself, to try and figure out how to make it look nice. And it works in the end, but it did take a little bit of working out as to what to do under here. And obviously this needed a support because it's just hovering at the moment, and there does in the end become a structure up on the top as well. Plus you've got all these areas back here. I didn't know what to do here. The obvious thing is foliage, so I think that is what I do in the end, sort of filling in the gaps, and around the back here as well. So there's so much to do with this habitat to finish it all off. So yeah, let's find out what I did next. But at least now you can kind of see the shape that it's going to take, and quite why this is such a long video, because quite frankly it took me an awful long time to build all of this. Right, so let's move on, because I filled in the gap with water, and I've started some of the rock work around the outside as well, which I think looks pretty nice actually. I think it looks like a good barrier. You know, an elephant would not be able to leap over this. Hopefully none of the other things would either. Certainly in the game they can't. Had to use obviously some big rocks in places to block off edges where they could potentially escape. So this was what I did with the outside barrier. I think this looks really nice actually, because it doesn't block the view at all, which is the whole point of this type of barrier. I didn't want this to be too tall, so just obviously copied and pasted and sunk it in with these rocks as well, my good old favourite aquatic rocks. I think that looks really nice actually as an exterior barrier. So eventually that does go around all of the outside, including over here. So that's a lot of work, as you can imagine. This is the entrance here, and I think at the moment this isn't working. This is too narrow. Having these rocks here doesn't allow the animals to cross, which is why they've dumped the food there. Let's just check the staff traversable area. Yeah, no, actually the staff can come in, but I don't think it's working for the animals. Yeah, I think it may be, but it may be that it works for animals at the moment because they're on the right side. But I think if they go out and get dumped back in, they sort of get dumped right in the doorway here, and then they don't actually manage to get into the habitat. I seem to recall that was a problem that I had. But anyway, the animals are in, as you can see. So there's just one of each at the moment. I end up with a pair of each because I didn't want it to be overcrowded, so I've gone with a pair of each. So you've got a rhino, you've got a zebra, you've got a bongo. I think that's a bongo. Yeah, bongo. You have an elephant, and you have a giraffe. So obviously I'll just put them in there so I could test out where they can walk, and it turns out it's not too bad at all. Actually, the traversable area, it's fine. Obviously they can roam around there, they can get down into this piece, they can come down here, they can go over the top. So it was all good. Very happy really with how it turned out. They needed water, so I put in a water area here. I thought it'd be nice to have that near the viewing platform there. So as you can see, I've obviously started the rock work all around here. I still have to continue the fencing around there at this stage, but it was quite a long, tedious task doing all of this fencing. It's obviously the rock work is done as a building, and then this fence is done as another one. So it's just lots of copying and pasting and sliding and moving around and getting the angles right. So yeah, it was quite tedious, I'll be honest, this habitat. It wasn't the most fun habitat to build because it's just lots of repetitive rock work and fence work, but in the end it looks really nice, so I am happy with how it turns out. So there's the fence to finish off. There's also the question of what to do with all of this this raised walkway, and how to fence it off, how to make it look natural and unnatural at the same time. So did I do rocks on the walls and then a fence at the top, that kind of thing? I wasn't too sure, so I did experiment a little bit. Look at that, the elephant's coming over going, oh, I can't reach my dinner. Yeah, don't put the dinner in the doorway, people. Bad move. Yeah, so there we go. So that's where we're up to now, and you can see it coming along. It does look very boring at the moment, quite repetitive, but in the end it looks much better once you get more foliage put in as well. The foliage makes all the difference. You know, you can have a habitat that's very repetitive, and then you just detail it with the foliage, and it just breaks it all up and makes it look really, really nice. So that is what I was doing next, I think, was just continuing all this repetitive fence work. So let me load up my next saved game and see where I got to next. So here you can see I've continued with my fencing. So that now goes around the entire perimeter of the habitat, all the way over this side as well. That was quite a long, tedious task, let me tell you. I do not want to do that again. As was all of this rock work, although at least the rock work was a bit quicker. This was fiddly because you have to kind of copy, paste and slide it and get all the angles changed. And yeah, but it looks good. I like it. I think it works with the look of the area. It's what I wanted it to look like. So, you know, it's always a nice result when you put a lot of effort into something. You want it to end up looking how you want, because if you spend an hour doing something and you end up not liking it, and you just waste an hour of your life, haven't you? So yeah, I did that. So then this also, I had to put these rocks around the inside here, and the main reason for that was because I'd used these large rocks around the edge of the water. It just didn't match into the land. There was lots of sort of straight edges. It looked terrible, so I had to cover them up. So I used these rocks. Again, it doesn't look great at the moment, but once you get some foliage on there, it will be absolutely fine. And I've also done rock work on this side of the bridge, which I think looks good. I do eventually do it on the back side here as well, and underneath here. So this is going to be a nice looking tunnel under here. It's going to have lots of sort of what they called stalagmites, I think is the right word, I think, coming up. from the ground. I think I did that anyway. I can't remember. It's been so long. But yeah, so that's that. I didn't do the work under here with the fence because I don't really, at the time I didn't know what I was doing under here, so I just left it like that for now, until I decided exactly what I was going to do under there. And I've also put this shelter in. This is my usual African shelter. I made this myself and I reuse it whenever I can because I think it looks really cool. So I put it in. I've had to remove this front leg here so that the animals can all come in here. Although I think I do change it because I'm pretty sure the giraffe and the elephant still can't actually go in it. Yeah, the rhino can, the zebra can. I don't think the elephant can either. Oh no, the elephant can. That was it. The elephant could make it in. He was the one I was using as a measure of whether it would work or not. But the giraffe can't. So I do something to it. I think I raise it up a bit. Just make it that little bit taller so the giraffe can go in as well. I think. We'll find out. I can't entirely remember what I did. But I like it. It's a good shelter. It's simple and straightforward and it looks African-y. So yeah, it's good. And I had this gap here. It made sense to have some kind of a shelter, and this was the obvious place for it. This was all just a bit too thin over here to have any sort of shelter. So yeah, so that's gone in there, and obviously I will decorate it a bit later on as well. So there we go. We are making progress. I think you can kind of see where I'm going with it, and yeah, it's going to look great in the end. Trust me, it was a long road, but it's worth it. So bear with me. Right, let me load up the next stage, and we'll see what I did next. Some greenery. So I've redone the grass. I wanted it to look grassy here, because these animals, a lot of these animals will eat grass, so it made sense for me to repaint the ground and not have it as a desert. I wanted it to be a bit more savanna-y. So yeah, there we go. I've also just done a bit more rock work around the pool here. Nothing too much, just a little bit. Obviously, again, it looks weird, but once you put some foliage around it, it blends it all together really nicely. And you'll notice there are now pairs of all the animals as well. So we have, I think, 2 of everyone now. 2 giraffe. I see 2 giraffe. I see 2 rhino. I see 2 bongo. I only see 1 elephant. Oh no, there's how did I miss that one? There's an elephant. I only see 1 zebra. No, I see 2 zebra as well. There we go. Yes, everyone is in a pair. Isn't that cute? Oh, everyone's in love. Right. So you'll see up here, I have put a fence. So I've used a barrier along both sides of this bridge. Obviously, this is not what it looks like in the end, but this is the structure in place. And then I do come along and I put in a new sort of edging to the whole thing to make it look nicer. But I think it works. I've also done the rock work along the back edge here now as well, and down inside the tunnel. So the tunnel now has a nice solid roof. Does it? No, it doesn't actually. Oh no, I discovered it was yeah, it was tricky getting this roof bit right. I did work it out in the end, but I was doing it and it kept causing some graphical errors up the top here, so I had to play around with that a little bit. So that'll happen later. I have detailed as well, again with these little aquatic rocks around the outside here, and I think probably a bit in here. No, I haven't done this yet, but I do eventually detail along this edge with the aquatic rocks as well. I think I did do this end. Yeah, just again, just a few of these things just dotted around in here. Yeah, so it's coming together, isn't it? It's looking more like an actual habitat now. Obviously this bridge still needs some work, but it's starting to really look like the animals could actually live. You see there's that graphical error when you zoom out, so you see it just disappears, the ground disappears, and then you zoom back in again and it reappears. It's very strange. I understand it because it's thin there. It's like it's a draw distance thing, but I don't really get it. It just seems odd that when it's solid ground it still draws it, but when it's thin it doesn't. It must be a programming thing, but it's very annoying because when you want to zoom out and take a screenshot or something, you've got a big hole in your land, and then you zoom in and your hole isn't there anymore. Very strange. There we go. That's computer programming for you. Everyone's having a nice swim. That's what I like to see. Some happy bongos. Does he look elegant? He's just glad there's no lions around trying to eat him. That would have been cruel, wouldn't it, if I put some lions in with him? Although I think the rhino might have had a word or two to say about that. The animals are also in proper pairs. I have got a male and a female of each one. Even though I've got breeding turned off, so we're not going to get any babies. But, you know, at least they're all paired up and making happy families. It's nice, isn't it? Oh, look at the giraffe over here on their own. I love the giraffe, actually. The look of these. This is great. I love the texture on their skin. It looks fantastic, doesn't it? Really, really detailed. I like that. Look at that. Look at that detail. It really looks like fur, doesn't it? It's great. Lovely creatures, giraffe. Everything looks so awkward for them. You can't help but feel a bit sorry. You know, when they try and drink, they have to kind of kneel with their legs splayed out to the side. It looks very uncomfortable. Well, look at their tongues. I'd love to have a long tongue like that. Oh, so cute. Yeah, I'm a big fan of giraffe. I have fed a giraffe in Colchester Zoo. I've mentioned that one before. Here in the UK, they do actually have giraffe there that you can feed by hand, which I have done, and it was a great experience. I've done elephants as well. Elephants tend to kind of hoover the food off of your hand, whereas the giraffe use their tongue. So you end up with a nice wet sloppy tongue at the end of it. But I don't mind that at all, because the opportunity to feed a giraffe by hand is something that not everyone gets to do. So yeah, I was very happy when I got to do that a few years ago. Okay, right, without further delay, let's move on and see what I did next. Okay, this is looking much more finished now. Now, you'll have to forgive me, I can't remember if this is actually the finished habitat or whether there's some more done, but usually the foliage is the last thing I do, so I believe this may well be the end. So first, let me just tell you that I did change this shelter. So you can see I raised it up a bit more and I've changed the legs so that it's these more chunky looking logs. And I believe now... No, the giraffe still can't get underneath it. Okay, I obviously didn't do that very well. I could have sworn I'd made it so the giraffe could get in, but maybe I gave up on that idea. Maybe they just couldn't. But at least the elephants can get in without bumping their heads. So it looks good having the elephants under there at least, doesn't it? Right, so... Foliage, yes. As you can see, my usual umbrella trees have gone in. I've got one of these ones here as well. These look really cool. These, what are they? Strangler fig tree. Yeah, I love the angle that you get from this. It really looks like it's growing out of the rock and leaning over against the wind. And yeah, it's a nice looking thing. So yeah, I use that one quite often. I didn't want to over decorate this, and you can see actually I have got rid of the green as well. The green was just a little bit too bright and in contrast to the rest of the zone. You know, when you zoomed out here, it was very, very green, and I don't know. I remember thinking it was a bit too much. So I went back to sand in the end. Unfortunately, there we go. That's life. So all my usual decorations. So the you know, the papyrus and the lilies in the water, some of the grass on the shallow areas here. Obviously a nice overhanging tree with a few nettles and things around it. Some of the usual desert things, the cacti and these. This is a blackthorn bush. There are some enrichment items around now as well. You've got a little grab ball there. You've got a large feeding station here, obviously designed to be viewed from the viewing platform. Oh look, there's the giraffe. Look how awkward that looks. Doesn't look very comfortable really, does it? Although it's a good job he's got a long neck. He's doing alright really, isn't he? Yes. So we've also got another feeding station here. Nice and close to the edge, specifically so you know people can be standing here, get quite close to the animal while it's feeding there. And you've got a scent thing on the floor here. You've got a toy here. Got a couple up on the top. So you've got a football, a tyre and a scratching post up on the top there. I've got another feeding station here just to encourage all the animals to come along this area here. Another feeding one here, and then another one right at the end here as well. And just for good measure, a little water spray there. And then again, just a few things dotted around. I didn't want to do too much here. Just the odd little bush here and there. Didn't want it to be too over the top. Mainly because I know obviously this is quite an overgrown place. I mean, this one I didn't put too much in, but you know, these areas I've got quite a lot of foliage in, but I still had the outside to do here, so I knew I would have a fair number of trees around the outside. That was my thinking, I believe, at the time. So obviously that is still to be done, as is the cave here. But the actual habitat itself, I think that is basically it done. And I think it looks really good actually. Obviously it will look better once all this surrounding stuff is done as well, but actually I think that all kind of blends together pretty nicely. And there's still quite a lot of detailing to do. So still got obviously this backstage area here, still got this viewing platform with the surrounds here. This pathway here is going to need some sort of edge along the back. There's some more detailing to be done with this around the back here because there's no foliage here at the moment. Then you've got the entrance over here. You've just got some little details where the pathway splits both there and there. And you've also got a restaurant that I build over in this area here. So there's still quite a lot in this. Actually, the other thing I forgot to mention was just that I put these posts in on this fence to cover up the fence posts that were there before because they don't look very good, whereas these wooden ones are looking a bit better. And yes, I appreciate that an elephant, if it really wanted to, could probably knock that down and run off the edge, but elephants aren't stupid. They wouldn't walk off this edge anyway. And quite frankly, it's a computer game. It needs to look good. It doesn't necessarily need to be realistic. And it's not realistic, of course it's not. Health and safety, they would never have this sort of thing in a zoo, but in my zoo the elephants are very well behaved, so I can get away with it. Yeah, there we go. Because what I wanted, I didn't want the people who were down here, I didn't want them to not be able to see the animals walking around up here. So this needed to be a see-through barrier. And I did at one point start doing thicker edges sort of along the top as well, and it just messed up the visibility too much. So I wanted the barrier to look strong, but I didn't want it to block the view. So that was my thinking behind just leaving this mesh and then just replacing the posts. So yeah, there we go. On the other thing I also did with this shelter was I did remove one more leg as well, because originally I just had one leg gone, but I decided to take another one out to make this a really wide entrance for all the animals to come and go. There we go. Right, so that is the habitat done. Now I think what I'm going to do, because I've still got quite a lot left to do in this area, so I think this video is probably long enough now. And even though the habitat is done but the surroundings aren't, usually I would include it all in one video, but because I've still got this large backstage area here and all of this around here plus this restaurant area over here, I've still got plenty to show you, so I'm going to finish that off in another episode. And leave this episode like it is for now, I think. Yes, that seems like a sensible idea to me, because you don't want to get bored and be watching this thing for an hour or so, do you? So hopefully this hasn't been quite that long. I'm not too sure until I edit all the pieces together. We shall see. So there we go. So thank you very much for tuning in, and hopefully you've enjoyed what I've created today. And hopefully you can come back and join me in the next episode to see all the final bits of detailing in our Africa area before we then move on to whatever I do next. And as of recording, I have not built anything after this Africa area, but it is likely to be, I think, this Arctic Arctic area over here. I've got some good ideas for that, and then the Asia area will be the last one that I do. But yeah, so there we go. So that is our Africa area for now. One more episode and it will be finished. So thank you for your company, and hopefully I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.